with David Ian and Kate Dale.
The show that plumbs the depths of mediocrity, celebrates the ordinary, and enjoys the everyday.
Hi everyone, welcome to Mediocre Gay, the podcast. I am David Ian.
And I'm Kate Dale.
So Kate, what's been mediocre for you this week?
I wanted to celebrate the humble spreadsheet. None of your Apple numbers, Google Sheets nonsense, but your proper Microsoft Excel.
Specifically Microsoft Excel,
yes,
okay.
Because it's the one I know how to use-ish. I mean, there is something so beautifully satisfying when you've got all your formulae set up and you put in a number or data there and it just all trickles through. And when you've worked... I can link different sheets now. I've even been able to link different workbooks. And
can you write all the formulas and everything?
Some of them. I mean, not like massive.
I wouldn't have imagined.
I know.
Having seen you operate your phone, attempt to use Instagram.
Yeah.
The other day when you thought you were posting something, you just private messaged me and I had to be like, nobody else can see this.
Very nearly an Ed Balls, really, aren't I?
Yeah, you are. Okay, who have we got this week, Kate?
This week we've got an amazing director whose work I've been lucky enough to see a few times. And in the summer, no, it wasn't the summer, it was the autumn actually, he did this fantastic play with Maureen Lipman, goddess that she is, called Rose, which is fantastic, but there's many more to come, so I want to welcome Scott Le Crass.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good, a little bit flustered, train delays, but other than that I feel really good.
We're just grateful when trains are running at the moment, right?
Yeah, it's a blessing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So Scott, tell us, so as I said, the last play of yours that I saw was Rose.
Yeah.
What was it? This is a really cheesy celeb question, isn't it? Was it like working with Dame? I think it is Maureen Lipman. Yeah.
It was wonderful.
Did you have to use the Dame every time?
No, not at all.
Just the first time.
Yeah. It was a really positive experience. I think because the process of when we streamed it to actually it being a live version has been so long, I think the development of how we've worked together and the development of the production has been, it's been a really, I hate the word organic in that sort of term, but it was very organic and it felt very natural and effortless. It was great, really great to work with her.
Are you now friends?
We are, we text quite
That's
a lot.
friends?
Yeah, I went to a dinner party with her last week.
Oh, like, we text.
Which was really lovely. Which was really lovely. She's so kind and supportive, and we text quite a lot.
That's nice.
Yeah, great.
I was going to ask about that because the first version of Rose that you directed with, I was going to call her Maureen. I don't think I can call her.
No, I don't think you should.
Dame Maureen was during the lockdown, wasn't it? And so I watched it in lockdown and then went to see it live. And how different was it? It was obviously a different experience watching it. That was one of the few live theatre things that I saw during lockdown, and it was just glorious to see live theatre, even from a living room. But seeing it, it was incredible watching it in the theatre. Couldn't hear a pin
Must have been
drop.
very different.
It was really different. I think for me, because it was originally a play, I was quite conscious about kind of holding on to the fact that it was a play, but because we were kind of experiencing this idea of streaming and being a bit more intimate with it, and it's a one-person piece, I wanted to kind of almost approach it as a sort of hybrid of the two things of creating something for screen, but also not kind of stepping away from it being a theatrical piece. There were two really different experiences. Obviously, you don't have an audience when you're streaming it and you're just filming. So the comedy really came to the surface in the live version because you can hear the laughs. Yeah. And there's that kind of very direct, immediate connection with the audience.
Comedy's two-way, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe.
Not at our shows. She was terrifying when the live show that I saw because somebody got their mobile phone out. So she held them off in character, obviously. She stayed in character.
I remember you saying.
And because of the way that performance is, it was kind of a smooth way of doing it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about that is because of the context of the piece and because of what she's doing, that she's sitting shiver, I think the idea of someone having a phone out would be disrespectful at that kind of point. So it does work in the context of the play. I saw it in the show report.
To be clear, it was not me.
I think the lady doth protest too much.
It was not me. I would not do that.
No, because you'd have accidentally made even more noise, probably. She'd have been live streaming the whole thing by mistake from her pocket. So the original version that you did, was it always intended to be a streamed thing, or were you originally going to be doing it on stage and then because of COVID you had to stream? Or
It was originally intended to be streamed. The production was originally done at the National in 1999, so it was an on-stage piece, and I thought it would work well as a stream piece. And then the response that we had from streaming it was so positive that I think all of us collectively thought, I think we should do this again when we can kind of all kind of be in the same space. So yeah, it sort of started as a streaming and then it became a reality of doing it live. So it's great.
amazing.
And Scott, how long have you been directing? Let's go back to you now then. So how did you get into, was directing what you always wanted to do, and how did you get involved?
No, I actually trained as an actor. So I went to drama school, did my acting training, and then I kind of realised that I didn't want to be an actor as I was kind of in my final year. But I still did it. Kind of felt like
It's what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I did it, but kind of, I think, quite honestly, a bit half-heartedly. I wasn't fully invested in it. But I think I was becoming interested in the other side of things. And I actually had an opportunity to go back to my drama school to work on a final show the following year, but as an assistant director. And then I thought, I think that's what I want. I think I want to be on the other side of things. And then it just sort of became a bigger kind of focus for me.
Yeah.
And then I became a teacher, weirdly. I sort of worked in further education for nearly 4 years. And I was directing, but with very, very large groups of young people who were training. So that kind of gave me a deeper understanding of it. And then I went, I want to do it as a kind of a career. And then I didn't I'm not an actor anymore. Yeah.
And it amazes me looking at your can we use that word? Off work, body of work. That's a nice proper director word, isn't it? Body of work.
Phrase.
It's such a difference in the types of. I think I would have assumed, if I'd ever even thought about it, that directors
all one subject,
they're Shakespearean, or they do. But you've done kids stuff because you do Elmo.
Yeah.
Every time we go past it, there's an Elmo in Elephant and Castle.
Yeah.
I'm not telling people where you live.
I think you're my actual address.
Anyway.
You know that road?
I always think of you, Scott, every time I see Elmo now. So I've got those two things linked in my head. But from Elmo to the community theatre that you've done to sort of big serious pieces, is there something, there's probably not a thread that connects all of that. I suppose some of it is what work is available pragmatically, but what do you look for in a piece that draws you in?
It's interesting. I thought you were going to ask that question, so I sort of prepped a little bit.
Yeah.
I think I'm quite interested in outsiders. I think that's always the thing, kind of.
That's the bit that draws you in.
That's the thing that really draws me, I think. Like, even though Elmo was a kid's show, it was a show for young audiences. But Elmo's an outsider. He's different from everybody else. And even though from the outside you just think, oh, it's a patchwork elephant, actually it's about understanding your differences. And then if you look by contrast at something like Rose is an outsider. Yeah. She talks about not feeling like she's part of something at points. And I think that is in terms of characters and the idea that people are on the periphery of something, but also I think kind of thematically, I think I naturally lean towards things that have a working class voice as and when. Something that is sort of LGBTQ linked, or if it's kind of discussing something to do with mental health, or something to do with older voices as well. Those sorts of things really excite me in work. And when those things sort of cross over, when there's a kind of intersectionality with those things, it's even more exciting. That's not a hard and fast rule, but generally there will always be one of those things that is part of the work.
What type of project would you say has been your favourite that you would go back to?
Oh, wow.
Not necessarily an actual piece, but like a type, like...
A type of project?
Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting. I think maybe... That's a very good question. What type of work?
Look
what
at
type
me.
Of project would I like to You're like tallying up who's got my questions.
I'm good at this.
Oh, you know.
No.
I think the things that I would maybe sort of do more of, which I am excited by, is I do a lot of open air and outside outdoor theatre. And I really enjoy that. And I like making work in non-traditional theatre spaces. And I've kind of dipped my toe a little bit at making work in non-traditional theatre spaces. I did a play in a hotel room, which was like really fascinating. And I became really kind of um, obsessed with how we move the audience from space to space. I'd like to do more of that, I think, because I do the work outside, which is a non-traditional theatre space, but like taking spaces that we really wouldn't necessarily think that theatre. And I think it's to do with the fact that I'm interested in making a space a performance space, but also I'm really interested in trying to encourage people who aren't traditional theatre goers
To access it,
to access it. Because I think sometimes when you see these kind of very ornate, big, grand theatres, you think that's not for me.
That's not for me. It becomes a barrier, essentially, doesn't it? Yeah.
And I want people to be able to access it. So it's kind of an artistic thing, but it's also about access as well.
Yeah.
And you're working on 2 plays at the moment, aren't you? How does that work, juggling? And then we're getting to both of what they are. And they're very, very different, aren't they?
Completely different, yeah. So I think I was having this conversation today with my friend because we were talking about, she was asking me about what, we were talking about kind of balancing projects. And I said, as a director, you kind of need to have lots of them on the go at the same time. You're spinning multiple plates. And it's a lot of it's to do with things like timing. That one show will go into rehearsals when another show is just about opened, and they're both pieces that open next month, but they open at different points in the month. So that it's just about kind of when you're kind of in the driving seat a little bit more, as it were. I hate that kind of phrase, but what I mean by that is that you have more control over the schedule. So you can kind of go, actually, this is really not convenient now.
Yeah.
Could
you're the
we
boss.
do an evening on this day? And actually, it gives a little bit more space to each project. So it's just about kind of being.
And what are the 2
balanced.
projects?
So I am doing a revival of a Stephen Burkoff play called Harry's Christmas at the King's Head Theatre. It is a rarely performed piece. I think because of the content, it's quite a heavy going play. There's content warnings on the website. It really addresses something in a quite direct way. It talks about loneliness and mental health at Christmas.
Which is really relevant.
Yeah. And I read the play in 2020 and I thought, I really want to do this. I know it's really kind of dour, but actually, for me, there's a reason of wanting to do it because I think that theatre can exist beyond the space that we see it in. And I like the idea of someone seeing that piece and they might be feeling like that character on stage, or they might have an inclination that someone else might be feeling like that, so they connect with them. So even though it's quite a heavy piece, I feel like there's something that you can take from it that is, I don't want to say uplifting. I think that you can take something that has a sort of a meaning. So Harry's Christmas is an alternative Christmas show, I would say.
Love it.
Quite heavy, but it's very provocative. And then by contrast, I'm doing a 1-person karaoke panto. A naughty.
Is it you?
In my wildest dreams.
It's a noughties themed karaoke panto. So there's loads of references to
That
specific
sounds
things in the
epic.
noughties.
Where is that?
That's at Omnibus Theatre, and that's on at various dates throughout December. That's again 1 person, so it connects, and it's sort of Christmassy, festive, but it's totally different in the fact that no performer ever does the show twice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we have a different performer every night, a different guest performer. We've got an amazing lineup of people, and it's brilliant because it really pushes me in a very different direction. Like Harry's Christmas, it's very text based and having to be kind of very it's more planned, whereas this anything could happen. And the piece is called Cinderella. And Cinderella is the performer comes in, the audience know that the performer's had no rehearsal, so they are prepped in a way as much as you can be about a show that you've never read. There is a mic, there is a screen, and the performer will sight read the
Wow.
show. Show's just under an hour. They will sight read the show. There's a mixture of songs because it's got a karaoke theme, and they play all of the characters, or almost all of the characters.
Sounds-
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
God, the challenge in directing that. So obviously it's setting it up so that it can actually functionally work and they get the
Yeah.
cues and the prompts and things that they need. But do you then meet with each performer and sort of brief them and is there any rehearsal whatsoever? Or?
Well, there's so we have what we call a cheat sheet. So it gives you like a little bit of information about the characters and a bit of information about what will happen. And then we give the performers the option of saying, look, if you want to kind of talk to us about anything else additionally,
then
you
you
can do.
Yeah.
We obviously won't let them see the script, but we can kind of talk more about the shape, more about the logistical stuff. So it's quite different from Harry's Christmas in the fact that there's a lot more to do with logistics.
Yeah.
And the wonderful writer of it, Tom Riles, Tom and I have met several times to kind of talk about the script, and there'll be notes that I give them and suggestions for things. So it's a very different process because it's a new piece as well. There's a different dialogue.
Sounds amazing.
Sounds amazing. We will make sure at the end of this we'll put the details out
Great,
so
thank
that
you
we
very
can.
much.
Yeah, no, absolutely no. I will be booking definitely both. I think. Yeah, good to have dark and light. So moving on to our questions. What does the word mediocre mean to you, or the idea of mediocrity?
Something that's mediocre is, in my mind, maybe something that is sort of everyday.
That's a pretty good.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Everybody else struggles, and it takes them ages to say it, and you're like, here's a sentence that makes complete sense.
Something that's everyday. And something that doesn't necessarily need to show off or doesn't need to be validated.
That's nice.
That's-
yeah. Oh God,
yeah.
I'm not mediocre.
That's
I
the
need to show
most-
off.
Because mediocrity, I think, can be great.
Yeah.
I think there's something wonderful in that.
Like the first guest that has got this
Really?
courage.
I was going to say, yeah, you're the
I'm
first one.
surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, people have quite emotional reactions to it, and either rejecting it and saying, I don't believe that mediocre exists because everything has to be amazing and special. And I think that partly comes out of all those good things we have now about, everything should be celebrated and raw, wonderful. I'm sounding flippant about that, but it's important that we don't judge ourselves. So I think some emotional reactions like that, or some are people's absolute fear of things being mediocre and that terror that
Lot of
they,
fear
or
around
their
it.
work, or their whatever is mediocre.
I
But
think there can be quite negative sort of connotations with that word. Because if you think about like at school, you might have been said, oh, you're really mediocre at something. So there's the association of the word average.
yeah,
And average can seem really bad. And I think with a lot of things, you have to have, you can be amazing at something and excel at it. But also, you can't be good at everything.
You can't be good at
Yeah.
everything. Exactly.
And not everybody can be good at everything
Yeah.
as well, because that would be also
Yeah.
really strange.
It would be intense.
Yeah, really intense.
So, what's something that you love, but generally other people think is mediocre?
I thought about this on the train. Had a lot of
You had a
time
long
to think
time,
about
yeah.
it. So something that I really like. So I've got this kind of I wouldn't say fetish, but I have this thing about like kitchenware and about things that like belong in kitchens, like sets of things. So if something belongs in a set, I'm really obsessed with it.
What, like
Oh gosh!
sets of tubs and things?
Yeah, like
pots
obsessed
and...
with it. Yeah, really obsessed with it. So like when things like
But only in kitchens.
yeah, like in kitchens.
That is so
like when
specific.
things fit into things
Oh.
like sets, or when things stack, or color coded things, and I think are really smart. I love things like that. I think it's.
Does that mean that you love Joseph?
Yeah,
Obviously.
things like that. Yeah, but like when you see like those sets of glasses that like, and you think, oh wow, that's quite a sort of simple thing, but they stack upon each other. I think things like that are quite.
Yeah, they're quite
brilliant.
cool actually.
yeah.
Or like mugs that sort of. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel about a mug tree then? Because they make me really uncomfortable. I think that's a really
mug
untidy way of
tree-
having your mugs.
Mug trees are practical, but they don't. I was going to say they don't get me excited, but they don't like. It's very strange
they're-
kind of way. But
They're
it's
clunky, aren't they? And they're not
Yeah.
aesthetically
No, I don't like them.
They're
I think
not
they're quite
aesthetically
old-fashioned
pleasing.
now,
Yeah.
aren't they? I don't know that people
Um,
really have them.
associated with pine kitchens.
Yeah.
Mm.
A pine mug tree.
I'm trying to think what else you would
things
have a
fitting
set.
together.
Like things like cheese knives or things like.
How do you feel about a cutlery set? You know, like a fancy cutlery set in a
Love it.
box.
Yeah.
Love it. Love things.
Obviously,
Love a
like that.
canteen.
obviously you've got one.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I love it when things have like sets of things. I love it.
I used to have tantrums every Christmas when we had to put our family, and this makes it sound, it was just silver plate. It wasn't like fancy silver cutlery. We'd get it out for Christmas and then have to put it, and everything goes. And they had 2 different knives, but of slightly different sizes. You had to work out which was which, and I would just have tantrums.
No, I know. It's exciting, actually. I do remember. It's one of my favourite things
Yeah.
at Christmas is with all the cutlery coming out of the
Yeah.
little box. And yeah.
And it's like having special. There is something satisfying about things going back neatly into a place as well.
Yeah, and also the practicality of it. It's like selling practical things that kind of look. You go, oh, that's really obvious, but really beautiful. Like things like drinks charms. I think that's really obvious.
Drinks charms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know when you have like.
You
Oh my
like this.
gosh! Welcome to the world of drinks charms. So there's this really, really. I'm not saying anything that's brand new, but when you get like, if you have people over and they've all got their wine glasses, the way to identify whose glasses
Is with a charm.
with a charm.
It stops people stealing.
Oh my
your-
God, yes.
Do it all the time with his drinks.
Yeah.
I'm like, which one of these is mine? Because you've
Yeah.
deliberately put our identical drinks down next to each other.
Drinks charms.
Yeah.
Right.
Perfect.
We'll be getting some of those.
They're great.
Okay. Is there something in everything having its place? Is there something in that, do you think? Is it like sets are very neat and tidy? It's almost like putting things in a box. So
Maybe.
everything being very put together, I feel like maybe there's something
Maybe.
in that.
I have a lot of kitchenware at home.
You have a big kitchen.
Yeah, it's an alright size. But it's like, it's a bit excessive. I've got like loads of glassware and I'm like, why do I need all of this? Why do I need 30 wine glasses? Something like that.
Wow. that's even you couldn't get through
Even
that
I
many
couldn't-
wine
no,
glasses.
Even I would try. I would do my best. I say I'm now trying to make some clever connection between the organising of storage and lots of things in their places and being a director, because it feels like that. You take all the actors, the text, everything, and you create. I think I'm reaching a bit.
No, I think there must be something there. I don't know what it is.
Organising and I mean, it's more to do directing than organising. I appreciate that, but there's something. It feels.
It's interesting though, because when you direct, you have to kind of make lots of decisions all the time. In real life, I don't like to make decisions. Like, where should we go to eat? I don't want to think about that.
Yeah.
Where should we go for coffee? I don't want to think about that.
I hear you. I feel the same. Yeah.
Just relinquish any sort of.
Yeah, well, when you spend all day long literally making decisions for other people, it's nice to not have to do that when you come home. I think that makes total sense.
Makes complete sense. And it must be quite carrying the weight of a production on your shoulders, isn't it, I guess? And the whole cast and crew playing their part, but it's your decision and your...
How does that, do you feel the weight of that responsibility?
Like, I think for me, it's sort of, you can feel it. I think it's about, I feel like a kind of like a connective tissue between the whole show. It feels like you're the person that's always having to communicate with lots of different people. I think it's about making sure. I like when I'm rehearsing something or making a show, I like that everyone to be involved, to be as happy as possible with every step of the way. And I try to have a rehearsal room that is full of like laughter, positivity. And that's the way that I work. And it feels like that works in the presentation of the work. Even though a lot of the pieces that I do can be quite heavy. But I think it's about how you then manage that yourself and about how you find ways of not allowing that to overwhelm you. I've worked on some shows that you think, oh wow, this is quite intense. But actually, I think one of the first steps about not allowing that to consume you is to be aware that it's intense.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, I just need like a little bit of time just to decompress.
Boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries.
And it is a job at the end of the day, isn't it? And not in a negative way. And I think there's something that must be really difficult, I think, or not difficult, important with something creative, that it does consume you, but it is a job. And therefore, at the end of whatever the working day looks like, which is obviously not 9 to 5, but you walk away and you go and do something different.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's sort of
shift your brain.
yeah. I think that's important as well to also have things that are not just the work.
Sorry, just a follow-up question. We talked about how you're drawn to work, and this is going back a bit, where sort of for outsiders, this is going to be one of those impossible questions to answer because you haven't been a straight director. You've only ever been a director who's gay, haven't you? So,
Yeah.
but coming from growing up as a queer person, and therefore having been, I imagine, feeling othered and different all the way through, that is what draws you to that, even if it's not specifically an LGBT.
Massively.
I mean, yeah.
Totally that. I kind of I feel that kind of lived experience really helps the work. And not all the time. I haven't like lived the lives that some of the characters that I'm kind of and the world that I'm kind of unpacking have lived. But I think that there is a connection in terms of feeling like you're on the periphery. Yeah.
And the others are just more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that it is something that there's more to it that is kind of it's okay being on the edge of something. Sometimes it can feel it isn't great, but sometimes actually embracing that and using that as your kind of like superpower or something, I guess is quite cool.
I like that.
So the last question we ask is, what is mediocre about you?
Ooh, what is mediocre about me? What is mediocre about me? It's probably like a long list of things. I'm just trying to whittle it down. What is mediocre about me? What is mediocre about me? I'm not answering because I'm like
Thinking.
there's nothing.
My humility is very mediocre.
What is mediocre about me? I think sometimes the fact that things don't always need to be complicated. And what I mean by that is like just enjoying things that are quite simple and not sort of fussy. So things like going for a walk can be seen as, oh, that's boring. But actually, I find that quite therapeutic. Or, I think that's something. Things that just, I sometimes get joy from things that people just might think, oh, that's quite, that's just not very interesting.
But it works for you.
But it works for me.
Yeah, and you've worked that out. That's the key
Yeah.
thing, isn't it? Knowing yourself enough to know, right, well, actually what I need now is a walk.
Yeah.
There's something as well about knowing that and then not being embarrassed or to do it, because if other people might think it's a bit bland or dull or boring or whatever it is, that not being embarrassed about that. I think that's important too as well. But
Yeah.
that can take quite a lot. The amount of stuff I've done because, oh God, failed efforts to look cool. I'm clearly never going to look cool. So it's never going to look cool.
Yeah.
At least you tried. Okay, where can we find you online?
You can find me on Twitter. Do you want me to give you my
Yep.
Twitter handle?
Yes.
It's Le Crass, so LE_CRASS.
Excellent. And Instagram?
And Instagram, I think it's Scott Le Crass. I think.
Have a look for Scott Le Crass.
Where does that? Sorry, this is one question I've always wanted to ask. Well, and probably many others. It's such an amazing surname. Where does it come from?
It's actually from my mum's side of my family. Yeah. So my mum was one of 7, and there were 6 girls and 1 boy. So when all of the daughters got married, they all changed their name, except my uncle. And I think my mum wanted me to keep the name kind of going, so I've kept the name, and it kind of works. I think
It's good branding.
It's very
That's
cool, yeah.
awful. That's
Is it a stage name? Like, no. Well,
real name. Yeah,
amazing. And where can we find the details of the 2 shows you mentioned?
So you can find Harry's Christmas. That is at King's Head Theatre. So it will be on their website. It will be on their Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And that's also with three, as in the number 3, Dame Theatre. So that's their production as well. So you can find it on all of their socials. And then for Cinderella, that's at Omnibus Theatre. So you can find it on their socials as well as Boy and Pen Productions.
Excellent. So we're going to check all of those out.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
that was
you.
great.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks for listening. You can find me online on Instagram at Mr. David Ian, or you can check out davidian.co.uk for full details of where Mediocre Gay is next. But it's coming back to London as part of Vault Festival in January. So check it out then.
And you can follow me on Instagram at Katie S. Dale.
And we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Mediocre Gay, the podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps other people find the show.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Mediocre Gay Pod, or share your mediocre secrets with us on mediocregaypod@gmail.com.